Okay, so, yeah, jumping right into it, Mirio's arrived on the scene, which, yeah, don't get me wrong, I like Izuku still, but every time Mirio makes an appearance, I just get this huge smile on my face, like, okay, everything the guy says and does just it just feels so genuine and makes me feel like everything is going to be alright, at least in terms of this chapter, I'm hoping everything's going to be alright, and I love the little, like, conversation between Mirio and Tamaki, about wanting a proper graduation. Like, it really shows that despite Class A's being Class A seniors, the big three even now still see themselves as students like everyone else here. Although the thing is now with Mirio here, this does kind of confirm to me that Izuku isn't likely to return to the battle for a while now. In fact, I almost feel like it's kind of confirmation that what Horikoshi is doing is he's setting up further setting up the confrontation between Eri, All for One, and Izuku. Like, that kind of feels like even more of what he's doing here. Like, he's setting Izuku up in order to confront All for One, whether in control of Eri's body or about to take control of her, or just All for One holding her hostage and all that. Like, that kind of feels like what's being set up here. Which, if that is the case too, it also has me worried for Bakugo now, even more now, because as Shigaraki ominously claimed, the only interest he has in Bakugo anymore is his connection to Izuku, and that alone has me worried that Bakugo isn't going to make it as alive. And trust me, I'm hoping I'm wrong on this, but it genuinely feels like Horikoshi is setting the stage for Bakugo in order to go out like Vegeta did against Buu. Only in this case, there's going to be no coming back for Bakugo, and even in a scenario I foresee where Bakugo does survive by the end of the series, even then, I feel like this fight is going to cripple him in some way, because right now Horikoshi seems... Because right now it feels like with Bakugo, Horikoshi seems hell-bent on showing how the single mistake of not having Izuku being there on that battlefield in order to help fight Shigaraki is going to have consequences, and one way or another, Izuku is going to regret not being there in order to help. Like, I feel that's what Horikoshi is doing here. Like, he's saying, yeah, even if Izuku makes it back, there are going to be far-reaching consequences that he's going to have to grapple with, I think. I also like but even knowing that, I like how we got a very nice scene with Kaminari in this chapter, showing that, yeah, he's gotten to know Bakugo so well up to this point that what others might perceive as Bakugo being reckless is him thinking logically about the situation and adjusting the circumstances and acting accordingly. It just so happens that he has a very destructive quirk to go along with that methodical approach. And of course, to contrast that, seeing Yue crumble in the backdrop of Shigaraki's presence is just like, again, it's simple imagery, but shows just how dire the situation is, and how, whether he knows it or not, when it comes to where Araki is as a character, he really now has become the new All for One, and in this particular situation, Bakugo really is like All Might fighting against those insurmountable power that we, like, it's in some ways the fight of Bakugo and Shigaraki has a lot of reflective elements to the fight against All Might and All for One, during the Hideout raid arc. And in fact, I'd argue at this point Shigaraki is far more of a danger than anything All for One himself might have been at the time. But with that said, there really isn't all that much to even say about this chapter beyond this, as it was really just laying the framework for how dire and hopeless the situation is becoming, while still offering that slight ray of hope with the Big Three's return. But aside from that, not a whole lot to really move forward in terms of aggression. And it's one of those things where it does make me wonder: is this really going to end with Is this really going to end in a couple of chapters? Because and is this really going to end this year? Because I'm having my doubts on that more and more. If it's going this slow, but again, maybe Horikoshi is planning to end this at the end of 2022, maybe, but I don't know. But one small thing I will say before I end this review is one thing I did like is it did kind of bounce a little bit of the tone of hopefulness with that of desperation. Like the situation on the battlefield itself is looking absolutely hopeless, but at the same time, on top of getting like Mirio and coming in with Hato and Tamaki, we also get honestly a pretty uplifting scene in the very beginning of this chapter with the business course of all people. And I will admit the scene with the business course in this chapter, it does feel a little bit of a course correction for this particular group of characters, as up to this point they've really just felt like a bit of a gag, and it was just Horikoshi trying to correct that by giving them more of a purposeful scene in the story. But at the same time, the rich way of what they're doing, the way it's explained of their actions in this chapter, it makes sense in context of documenting this event, not only for the sake of prosperity, but also so mistakes of the past and the present can be learned as to not repeat them in the future, and how the events of the business course or archiving will determine how society moves forward into the future. And I feel there's a slight bit of commentary there on how readership in Japan rejected the message that Horikoshi wanted to portray with the series, but ultimately ended up getting, ultimately because they weren't fans of how Horikoshi portrayed the villains, it all ended up in the current situation now. But it's like, yeah, I feel there's a bit of a comment. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but there does feel like a slight commentary there. But yeah, guys. That's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll. Be sure to notification bell with the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight signing off. Later, everyone.